Maintained around the world the challenges that we have. You see that we're closing the embassies at the time we're doing it, but it's going to be a drawdown inside Afghanistan and close in Iraq, so you're going to see a shrinking field. So are we planning long term? And that's what I wanted to make sure we were doing and how we all work together to make that happen. I first want to talk about, though, before we give an update of Washington, I want to walk us through the biggest challenge we have right before us, the furloughs, and where the DOD is at. And I want to walk us through from the very beginning of the concept so we all know where we are and know where we're going and know the strategy and the plan to try to correct this. That's just one element overall, but it's the most pressing element right now. The whole concept of the idea that came through started when we were dealing with the debt ceiling. When we got to the final days, if you read Woodward's book, it came out of the White House. The president thought he could create this super committee that it just makes sequester happen if nobody works. That way, if you did sequester, the super committee would work in the process, and in the end, it did not work. So, what we thought inside the House, and I know I've taken some criticism from people, I've read some letters to the editor. Thank you for printing them back. But I read them, and rightfully so, you can make the argument. But this is the argument I like to make back. Inside the House, we saw what was happening. We proposed a plan inside the super committee. They did not take it. We didn't sit back for sequester to come. We passed 2 bills twice and sent it to the Senate that would offset. You'd get the cuts, but why would you go in the manner of what sequester would do? Just across the board, take some, take none others, without being strategic about how you would go and make the cuts. Well, we passed that twice. The president said he'd veto it, and the Senate would never bring it up. Then when the time came, it goes into effect. What's happening here at Ridgecrest should not be happening to this base. Working capital, it's the much different base. And I'm very frustrated with the Secretary of Defense. Many different folds. That one, you know the answer he gave us, that he could not meet with members of Congress. He had no time in the whole month of June and July meetings. I cannot understand how a secretary had that time. So Hale came to see us, and we got into a discussion. How can a working capital group be put in deferrals? We went section by section, even where it says how you have to solely, as you go through, it would not affect us. That this is work that we have to provide, money's already there. The argument he tried to make back to us was, he's preparing for next year. I said, you're preparing for next year, but the work's already there. It's going to cost you more in the long run. Why wouldn't we go through and do it? And if you're preparing for next year, you're dealing off some economic numbers. Why have you never shown us these economic numbers? So I requested those. I still have not received those based upon the question. After that meeting, I had something else up that week, DOD appropriation bills. And so myself, along with some other members, decided to write an amendment. Sometimes it's very difficult to put an amendment in because you'll find appropriate, they'll decide, we've already done the work, you don't change our work in the process. And it only takes so many to hold back. But we thought we would clarify what a working capital group was, that they were off limits inside the furlough because the money is already there. They have to go get the work. The money's already there, pay for the work. Cost you more long term. We were able to get that into the bill. Now our challenge is, now it's once through the bill, it's one of the appropriation bills passed, how do we get it all the way through? I believe once you're in the bill, you're much stronger. And of all the DOD approaches, DOD is the one that's most likely to stay the course. It's one that gets the most bipartisan support, and with such a high number, then when we deal with the Senate, we're in a much stronger position. I will walk through and fight with the Secretary of Defense, but if he's not, what I believe, following through on what it says should be done, I'm going to use the legislative process at the same time to get the answer that's supposed to be correct. So we will continue to fight within there. There's talk that we had held before committee. He talked about, I have not heard of anything, shrinking the number of furlough days. Because what I see the Secretary of Defense doing, he's trying to make it as most painful as possible instead of being strategic about how you want to do it. And I'll give you this one example. When we have a challenge inside our own economics, do we take that clear across the board? Do you send 10% less to your house payment or to your energy bill. No. You make strategic decisions on what you do. And that's not what he's doing. By going across the board creating pain, and you can't make it, one, is productive. Now, long term, it creates, to me, a challenge for us, because we're going to lose. We just got a lot of young people on board. These are high intellectual individuals, as many as you know and you are. What do they think long term of where they should be? It does a direct effect when you also find one, economics from the reports that we just heard. First thing you're going to find is the occupancy, and you're going to find from local small businesses. That's why putting the small group together and expanding it, that we're looking long term. We're going to fight our challenge right now that's before us, our short term, and then we got to fight our long term challenge as well. And some of those all play, and it's different than any place else in the country that we know it. That we have to survive for the base to survive, and the base has to survive so we can survive. That's different when you go into San Diego. That's different when you go into bigger metropolitans. And one of the biggest things that I thought was most helpful that we talked about in our better interaction with the base, especially when along with the city we were talking about. Recreation. They have recreation facilities there too. They're getting cut back. But are there ways that we can do, maybe they're plowing along, maybe the city cuts it for them. Are there ways, and then we utilize it? Is there different options that we can think outside the box that can help us both? One that a city councilman brought up too about paving. Can't we make savings if they're going to pave and the city's going to pave? Can we do bulk payments? Can't we work together? We found cities down in Southern California that are doing this. They're combining together for those options. So those types of things we have to think outside the box long term. And I was actually, I felt good about the answers we were getting back this morning from the prospect. So let me stop there. I want to make this as much as a communication feedback to me as well. I know we had some people with some good ideas that said they want to propose to me. I want to be able to answer any questions people have as well. So if you want to, I can stop there. We can go on with questions, comments. If you want a greater update at Washington, none of it's that good.